Now we're turning to rugby. Very happy to say Pieter du Toit from News 24 in South Africa is with us. Hi, Pieter.
Good evening, gents.
Great to have you with us. Whereabouts in South Africa are you?
I'm in Johannesburg,
Okay.
the epicenter of the rugby world, I suppose, now.
Yeah, so we keep hearing, and the epicenter of the Gauteng province, which in turn is the epicenter of the COVID-19 third wave
Indeed.
situation. So the first three Lions matches will be in the Gauteng province, Johannesburg and Pretoria. 5 games of 8 of their 8 games in total. The most recent information we had, Pieter, was that the Gauteng province has about 15% of the population, but at the moment is accounting for about 65%, give or take, of COVID cases. So this third wave is taking hold. Can you give us a sense of how serious things are on the ground? Do they feel like imminent crisis? Is that generally the talk over there at the moment?
Look, unfortunately, it is. We've had, much like the rest of the world, two serious waves. Obviously, our winter, your summer last year in the middle of the year, which was repeated by a second wave, December, January. Now we've been hit by a third wave, which unfortunately seems to be dominated by the so-called Delta variant, the Indian variant, which I know the UK and Ireland have also suffered under. So we are quickly being the beta variant is quickly being vanquished by the much more insidious and dangerous Delta variant. Our vaccination program has not yet reached the heights that we hoped it would, with a very small percentage of our population having been inoculated at this stage, which is a cause of huge concern and enormous frustration for the country at large. And we are in a quite a severe and a cold winter on the high veld in Johannesburg, which is obviously being worsened by the third wave and the fact that so few of our populace have been vaccinated, have received the vaccination. So we are in a quandary. We're in a very difficult position. We just moved into an adjusted level 4 lockdown, which means movement in and out of this province, which is the most populous province in the country, also the economic heartbeat of South Africa, has now been, we're basically in quarantine as a province and as a city. You can't move in and out of the province for leisure. You can only come in for business and if you have a valid permit. So things are a bit hairy at this stage. It's difficult and the big issue at the moment is that the third wave, we have not yet reached the peak. We are still very much on an upward trajectory. And in Johannesburg, in the province of Gauteng, as you mentioned, we have now exceeded by more than double our 7-day moving average, where in the first 2 waves we saw around 5,500 new infections every day. We are now seeing in excess of 13 to 14,000. That's almost triple, 13 to 14,000 infections every day. So we are in a tight spot at the moment.
And Pieter, I was reading that it's very possible that the full extent of the cases not being reported properly because it's ravaging through the townships maybe, and that's more difficult to account for. Is there truth in that?
Look, our medical research institutions who keep track of excess deaths and has been doing so since the early 1920s, say and have calculated that natural excess deaths during the first 2 waves and certainly during the whole COVID period is almost more than double than it used to be, which indicates that many of the sources of mortality aren't properly recorded because of various reasons. A lot of deaths happen and occur in deep rural areas in the Eastern Cape province, Limpopo, which is the far north of the country, places where infrastructure and medical care and health services aren't as readily available. So our true mortality rate seems to be much higher than is being reported officially. So COVID in this country is an enormous concern for everyone. It is ravaging through the population at the moment. The fact that our vaccination process and program has not been able to get off the ground is an enormous cause of concern. Our Minister of Health just like Britain's Minister of Health was caught in flagrante quite recently. He's almost on his way out, and that obviously led to some instability at our Department of Health, coupled with the problems that we have in obtaining vaccine, unlike Britain, Ireland, the United States, and the rest of Europe. Countries in Africa, including South Africa, has been unable to secure enough quantities of the vaccine. So it's not through a lack of trying, although our government has certainly not helped our cause.
Have the Springboks team and squad been vaccinated? And if so, are people unhappy about that?
No, they've been vaccinated. Government has been vaccinating certain sectors of the population over the last couple of months, starting with healthcare workers, frontline healthcare workers, and working their way downwards to law enforcement officials, police officials, etc. Journalists will very soon be inoculated as well. And as part of an agreement with the Department of Sport and the Ministry of Sport, the national Olympic team that will be leaving for Tokyo soon have also received their vaccinations, as have the Springboks. So it's important that people of significance, like prominent sports teams, politicians, etc., are seen to be taking the vaccine. Vaccine hesitancy is an enormous problem in this country. There seems to be, or not seems, there are, and there is. We are, much like the rest of the world, suffering under large or very significant false narratives being propagated by false news outlets, which has contributed to vaccine hesitancy. So I think it's quite important that the Springboks have been seen to take their vaccines, and there's certainly no national debate about the fact that they did get the vaccines. I think everyone's looking forward to watch some rugby. Although there's nothing of the excitement that you would have wanted during a normal Lions tour. We're going to miss the Irish and the British, filling up our pubs and spending their pounds in our game reserves and parks, etc. So there's no debate about the Springboks getting their vaccines now, but everyone has been vaccinated. The South African Rugby Union did confirm today.
So it's been a busy 48 hours, I guess. Ostensibly, that's the reason to have you on. We've known about this third wave for a while, but a few things have happened as the Lions touched down on South African soil. 3 Springboks tested positive, although I think there was one false positive in amongst the 3. Curfew was declared from 9 p.m. No alcohol sold, restaurants takeaway only. I think that's for the next 2 or so weeks as South Africa heads to level 4. There's been confirmation now there will certainly be no fans, we're hearing, Pieter, at the matches. Are the matches going to take place even in where they're initially slated to take place in? Like we're seeing rumours here of everything moving down to Cape Town, or maybe all the matches going except for the 3 tests. So you'll probably be able to shed some light on where we are on the logistical front.
Yeah, look, it's the tour is certainly not taking place under any semblance of ideal conditions. I mean, I mentioned the fans. The 2009 British and Irish Lions tour was such a magnificent experience. When we welcomed between 30 and 40,000 fans in the country, who packed out the stadiums. Enjoyed the hospitality, packed out the pubs, visited the game reserves, filled out the restaurants, and just contributed to such a wonderful, wonderful experience. Sport is about the coming together of friends and people, enjoying sport, but enjoying more than a couple of beers and each other's company afterwards. And we're not going to have anything of the sort. These tests might as well be played in Hong Kong. I was supposed to take my family to the first test up here in Johannesburg at the 90,000-seater FNB Stadium, which hosted the FIFA World Cup final in 2010. Nothing of the sort is going to happen. Coupled with the third wave that really hit the country, and especially this part of the country, with force over the last week, the sense of I won't say panic, but there certainly is enormous concern that this whole year is going to be a write-off as well. The economic impact of the lockdown is enormous. Restaurants, this will be the death knell for a number of of hospitality of a number of businesses in the hospitality area, most notably restaurants, bars, etc. Sun City, the famous resort where the Sun City $1 Million Golf Challenge is held every year, is now closed until the 11th of July. So the repercussions are quite enormous. But as far as the rugby is concerned, and as far as the players are concerned, they're going to live in their own bubble, as we've become used to over the last year. They will be ensconced in luxury hotels. They'll be ferried to and fro from their training grounds. That will also operate in a bubble. No one will be able to get close to it. Fans won't see the players. Everything will be sanitized once, twice, thrice every single day. So it's going to be a very weird experience for the players, I think, as well. We won't see them. You won't see the Lions ambling through shopping centers or, popping up in a restaurant or a bar somewhere where you can strike up a chat with them. So it's going to be a very weird experience, I think, for everyone, both for you guys sitting in Ireland and for us sitting a couple of kilometers away from the stadium. They will be safe, but we are in a very difficult situation. And look, I do think that the wisdom of the tour needs to be questioned. We need to question whether or not this shouldn't have been pushed back by 12 months. The South African Rugby Football Union, I think, played it very poorly. They should have used their status as the current World Cup champions to insist on this tour being pushed out by a year. Because the economic impact of the Lions visitors, the symbolism, the significance of a tour like this, I think is being diminished by holding it during the middle of a very serious third wave. And look, I have to add that the mortality rate, the infection rate is much higher than during the first two waves that we did experience in South Africa. Much more people are dying, younger people are dying, people under the age of 40, often fit, are dying. And in Gauteng, in Johannesburg province, there isn't a single ICU bed available. Let me repeat that again. There isn't a single ICU bed available in Africa's most important city. They are all occupied by COVID-19 patients. So we should not make light of the situation where we are.
No. Well, that's a desperate situation. Do you suspect, therefore, that the optics of this tour will be questioned over the coming weeks?
I think it's a coin with two sides. On the one side, it is important for a country's the mood in the country to have something to look forward to and to have something to enjoy. And live sport, I'm sure when you guys went through your first lockdown period last year, the one thing that we all missed was live sport and the competitiveness of live sport and the way that it tends to lift people and lift a country. So from that perspective, I think I can hardly wait for the first match, which is supposed to be played on Saturday. But, we are still in the middle of a pandemic, a global pandemic, let me remind you. It's not as if Ireland or the UK is out of the woods. We certainly are not. Africa is in very deep trouble. South Africa is in deep trouble. In Johannesburg, where I am, we're in, my family and I, we aren't leaving our house. We're trying to stay indoors as much as we can or stay on our property as much as we can. So it's I think the wisdom should be questioned, but I think money talks. I think the fact that the South African Rugby Union, is insistent on taking as much out or getting as much from the broadcast sponsorships and the broadcast fees as they can. We need to question that. A tour pushed out by a year, would have added much more value, and I think the Lions' place in the global rugby schedule warrants that, and the fact that the Springboks are the current world champions. The South African Rugby Union should have leveraged that much more to insist on a proper tour.
The sense early on seemed to be that the schedule next year couldn't be hicked on, but I do take your point that maybe they could have pushed back on that more, the South Africans. There must be a terrible sense of fear then, Peter. I mean, you're saying you and your family aren't leaving your home. If you're saying there's not a single ICU bed available in Johannesburg right now, and this variant is affecting young people and deaths are on the rise. There must be just a palpable sense of fear in your neck of the woods right now. Nobody wants to catch this disease, to say the least.
Look, that's interesting. Palpable sense of fear is perhaps putting it a little bit strongly. Although I would have preferred that the population at large had that fear instilled into them, because the Delta variant, the Indian variant that has now spread to this country, is unlike the Beta variant. It is much more contagious. It's the impact on the respiratory system seems to be much more severe, and it seems to affect a much younger cohort of people. So keeping your distance, social distancing, as we've become accustomed to during these times, washing your hands, wearing a mask becomes all the more important. And unfortunately, a combination of poor governance, a vaccination program, like I've mentioned earlier, that has not yet fully gotten off the ground, and people's frustration being in lockdown, people's frustration with not carrying on with their normal daily lives seems to have trumped any and all semblance of responsibility. So okay. I would have loved people to be a little bit more afraid. I don't want to go to hospital. Unfortunately, it's not something that you want to take a chance with. So I hope that the peak comes quickly and that we can slide down on the other side. But all indications are that the peak will be higher and that the peak will be longer.
Okay, well, hopefully it's not as bad as promised. So then finally, Peter, in 20, 30 seconds, if you can, so the seriousness of what you're telling us notwithstanding, because these games are behind closed doors, you're expecting the schedule to follow the plan? It won't just all descend on Cape Town anytime soon?
No, there's no reason I would think to move it. I mean, the British and Irish Lions, excuse me, sorry, that's not COVID. The British and Irish Lions are staying in a 5-star establishment in the north of Johannesburg. They are training at a prestigious boys' high school close by. They are living in an absolute lap of luxury. They'll be playing at some of the world's best stadiums at Ellis Park and the FNB Stadium. So I don't think there's any reason to move it. But like I said, these matches might you could play them on the moon. For all that, there's going to be no atmosphere. It's going to be dead quiet. You're going to hear the tackles. You're going to hear the thighs hitting shoulders, and that's about it. And the shrill whistle of the referee. That's the extent of the atmosphere, which is such an enormous pity. But I don't foresee the matches being moved. There really is no reason.
Okay, Pieter du Toit from News 24. Thanks for the update, Pieter. Much appreciated.
It's a pleasure. Keep well and enjoy the rugger.
Yes, likewise. That was Pieter du Toit from News 24 over in South Africa. And if the games all do go ahead, we do have live commentary of all the games here on Off the Ball. We brought you the first one last Saturday from Murrayfield. So the first game on South African soil is this Saturday, and that is against the Emirates Lions. South Africa themselves obviously in action against Georgia on Friday night, but the Emirates Lions against the Lions on Saturday will be live here on Off the Ball. Our coverage brought to you in association with Vodafone, lead partner of the British and Irish Lions. It's 0-0 between Sweden and Ukraine, 22 minutes gone. Short break, we're talking basketball then.